Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Yankees Farm Report. As you guys can see, I have a full panel here. Marcus, Aaron, and the great John Brophy. Just wanted to say thank you guys for coming on. Appreciate you all.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, good to be back.
Just wanted to mention that I'll be on vacation next week, so I don't know how much I'll be able to post. So just giving you a heads up on that. I don't even know if I'm going to bring my laptop with me, so just giving you guys a heads up. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention something in regards to engagement on YouTube. I just want to ask for your help with something, which is on the daily highlights. They're way behind what they were last year in terms of views, in terms of likes, comments, and I get it, across all social media platforms, that's pretty much the case. But for me, that helps me determine and prioritize like which guys I'm going to do videos for first. Of course, there's the obvious guys, the guys that are hot, and the top five guys. They typically get the most views, but otherwise, the likes do help me know what you guys want to see first. So if you guys could do me a favor, because I see some of you are watching them, but they're just not getting any likes. So if you could, like I said, just hit that like button and I'll know which to prioritize going forward. I did set some goals going into the season, which were 5K subs. I'm not sure if I'm going to reach that this season. There's not a clear cut, like a top five prospect who's producing day in and day out, like a Jason or Spencer Jones in the last two seasons. And on Instagram, it was for 10K. I'm on pace for that, so it's still possible. So again, like I said, if you could just hit the like on those daily highlight reels, so I know how to prioritize them. And lastly, just want to thank the members of the channel for pitching in to keep the lights on. The generosity is greatly appreciated. So getting right into it, I'll just start out with some injury updates. Regarding Brando Maia, it looks like it might be an ankle injury. John, maybe you could double confirm for that, but I don't have a timetable from him on that. I did see a picture of it and it looked pretty bad, so I expected him to be on the show for like 2, 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I understand. He was supposed to have gone for imaging last week. I hadn't heard back about what the determination was on that.
Mhm. Regarding Emmanuel Tejada, supposedly he's close. I don't know how close that is because, as I've told you guys before, I don't like to prod too much.
Mhm.
It doesn't feel like the prospect is forthcoming with it. I don't press him on that. Regarding Henry Lalane, he is already throwing. He should begin bullpen sessions next week, and he's still looking for at rehab starts in July. Charlan Arias, the last update that I have from him is that he's still on the shelf. He's not even throwing. I think he had to go for scans, but that's all I have on him. Angel Benitez is likely done for the year. And Alan Facundo is throwing, and he's about a month away from rehabs as well.
What happened to Willie Montero? Because he was doing rehabs and then he's not in the lineup anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna hit him up and ask him, what was going on with him because yeah, I noticed that he wasn't in the lineup when I didn't see him in the lineup for back-to-back days in the FCO. I thought he was gonna be at Tampa, but I
Yeah.
just haven't seen him. So the assumption for me was something set him back, and that's why we're not seeing him. But I don't know yet. I was gonna hit him up and ask him if something was going on.
Yeah, I'll see if I see anything tomorrow when I go to Complex League, but it's an away game in Dunedin. So I don't know if he's going to travel. I don't know. You know what? Actually, now that we're talking about him, I'm going to go look at the roster. So hang on one second.
I'm glad you mentioned Alan Facundo. He was doing pretty well to start last year in
Mhm.
Tampa, and I'm a little surprised though because there was TJ, right? So that was probably what in late May or June he got the surgery. So I'm a little surprised to hear he's throwing, but it's good to see that he's recovered and we might get to see him a little bit this year.
Yeah, I definitely he's one of the guys that I was looking forward to seeing this season, along with Angel Benitez. But I mean, it is what it is with that.
It's the life of a pitcher.
Hopefully, that's not the case for Cunningham.
All it says for Willie is that he's on the 7-day beginning rehab with FCL, but he's not on the FCL minor league rehab portion of the roster.
All right.
So I don't know.
All right. Moving on to the players of the week. Going right to the DSL. I'm looking at Asias Castillo. He hit 500, 1,500 OPS, two extra base hits, a home run, two RBIs. Justin Capellan hit 333, 929 OPS, an extra base hit. Alfred Siriaco, who didn't start for the first 3, 4 games, I want to say. He did eventually. He's been in the lineup since then, but last week he did hit 333, an extra base hit, and RBI. Richard Mantique his 300 with a 1364 OPS, three extra base hits, two home runs. Juan Torres was one of the middle signings of the IFA class that just passed. Hit 400, 1438 OPS, three extra base hits, a home run, three RBIs. You had Bron Martinez, who was hot to start the season, hitting 375, 1295 OPS, a home run, five RBIs. Christopher Reyes was playing really well. I expected him to be in the FCL this season. That wasn't the case. They decided to call up Dexter Peralta, but he hit 364 with an 864 OPS, three walks, two stolen bases. I see John nodding his head. And Steven Marinas, who most of you know as Steven Romans, hit 333, 804 OPS, and RBI, three walks, and two stolen bases. On the pitching front, you had Freddie Peñuelas. Pitched to a 270 ERA, three innings, three and a third innings, one earned run, two walks, two strikeouts. Inix Sanchez, which is one of my favorite pitchers down there, pitched to a three ERA, three innings, one earned run, four strikeouts. Carlos De La Rosa, two and two thirds inning, one run, five strikeouts. And Alexander Almonte, who's probably my favorite pitcher on the island, pitched three scoreless innings with three walks and three strikeouts.
And the good news on Valorio so far, more walks than strikeouts.
Mm-hmm.
Good sign.
I think he's at 8 walks and five strikeouts.
Yeah.
He's hitting, I think, 315. I posted something about him earlier today.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, I guess I'm looking up Baseball Reference, which hasn't updated. So I know he had a couple knocks today, but was hitting 250. So that's probably that's definitely north of there now.
Yeah, he had two hits in today's game. I think he had two hits and a walk, if I'm not mistaken.
And I thought, did he have two strikeouts as well, though, if I remember correctly? So
That I'm not sure, but I know his totals is 8 walks and five strikeouts on the season.
okay, then yeah, I'm looking at three strikeouts, so that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's good to see him making progress. I mean, he's still, still going to be only 18 through the rest of the season, and being one of the higher, I think an article I wrote this before the season started, I noted that he basically had the signing bonus of a second round pick. He was a second round pick in the MLB draft. So, he was definitely a high priority signing, and it's good to see him starting to get comfortable because last year was definitely not the best introduction to pro ball for him.
No, it wasn't, and I think he had an injury in, I want to say it was in the middle of the season. I think it was shoulder. I'm not 100. I don't remember what it was anymore, but um, and I did speak about that several times, and that did cost him some development time, and he just didn't seem to recover from that. The rest of the season was pretty much a wash, in my opinion. But like I said, the injury for me is what did it.
And I think he's going to be one of those that gets called up to the complex league by the end of the month. I think it's like end of June, early July that they usually get sent up when they start doing their moves in Tampa to start making room for the draft. So I want to say that sounds like that's about the right timing for that.
When was the last time that they called up a position player from the DSL? Because I can't remember one.
They do it every once in a while. Like if you have someone that's really, beating the leather off the ball, then or someone that's like a high priority, they would do something like that. They've done it. It's like middle of the season just to see if it's worth pushing the prospect. They just called someone up, I thought.
Yeah, because my knee-jerk reaction was, they've
Dexter-
definitely done it, but I can't
Dexter.
think of who it was.
Yeah, Dexter Prado was the one that got
Well,
called.
this year, you're right. He didn't. But I mean, I feel like they did that within the last couple of years.
Yeah, they've done it
Find it.
before. Yeah, I forget who it is, but I know they've done it
Is it
before.
Nelson Medina? I can't remember.
No,
I
he
can't
started.
recall.
He's been full season since when he was here.
Well, I mean, obviously, very, very small sample size, but that controlling the strike zone is what I'm going to look at first for somebody that age, and this is a good sign. So I'll take this, grain of salt, but I like what he's starting off doing here.
Yeah, and I mean, in that same vein, I mean, I've heard a lot of great things about Manny Cedeno. I'm very optimistic on him, but and I get it. You're a professional now. You're not facing the same kids in the back lots anymore, but I'm a little concerned about the strikeouts. Again, it's very, very early, so that could change quickly.
And he's a baby, right? Even in the class.
He's probably the youngest. He's like 16, I think. Yeah, he's 16. All right. Moving on to Tampa, you had Tyler Wilson last week. He hit 524, 621 on base, 1192 OPS, an extra base hit, 7 RBI, 7 walks, 5 stolen bases. On the season, he's hitting 287 with 755 OPS, 6 doubles, 4 home runs, 15 stolen bases. He's got a walk rate of 12% and a strikeout rate of just under 25%. He's having a really good season. Marshall Tool has been really hot of late. Last week he hit 444, 1537 OPS, 4 extra base hits, 2 home runs, 11 RBIs. He was my player of the week in the system. On the season, he's hitting 316 with a 938 OPS. That's 7 doubles, 3 triples, 2 home runs, 18 RBIs, and 16 stolen bases. And he's walking at an almost 16% clip, striking out at around 21%.
He was the league player of the week too.
Yes. He was the FSL player of the week, yes. Hans Montero has been really good as of late on the offensive side. He's hit 278 last week with 825 OPS, a home run, 2 RBIs, 3 walks, 2 stolen bases. Brian Sanchez hit 263, 832 OPS, 2 extra base hits, 3 RBIs, 8 walks, and 3 stolen bases. On the pitching side of things, you had Gage Zeal. He went 5 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts, no walks. If you look at his last 5 starts, he's 3-0 with a 2.67 ERA, 27 innings pitched, 20 hits, 3 walks, 26 strikeouts, 196 average against. And Andrew Landry, he's pitching to a 2.25 ERA. Actually, last week he pitched to a 2.25 ERA. That's 4 innings, 2 runs, 4 strikeouts. Over his last 4 starts, he's 3-0 with a 1.88 ERA, 24 innings pitched, 17 hits, 26 strikeouts. And I think I mentioned that in one of your posts, John, that one of the reasons why, or one of the guys that, or 2 of the guys that are pitching very well on the Tampa side of things is Gage Zeal and Andrew Landry, who've been very good for over a month now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a couple guys that I've been wanting to stay, but with all the rain that we've had, Gage Zeal's supposed to pitch tomorrow, but it might be Etheridge. It might be, I mean, who knows, right? It's so like I might go to the game tomorrow, and it's kind of luck of the draw on who I get because you have like 3 guys that are supposed to have been throwing, and they've played 1 game so far this series.
Wasn't it supposed to be a doubleheader today?
Yeah.
Yes, it was supposed to be doubleheader today. That got banged. So now it's a doubleheader tomorrow, doubleheader Sunday.
Mm.
Yeah, I just, I think you mentioned him though. Gage Zeal's probably, I'd say probably the most prized prospect in Tampa right now.
Yeah.
Fourth round pick of the 24 draft, and he got off to a tough start. His first few starts in Tampa, had to make a spot start for Somerset. But ever since coming back down to Tampa after that spot start, he's really settled in, and I really like. I think he is even new to the system. He's probably one of the top 3 strike throwing pitchers in the system. It's his strength. He throws, I think he's at 67, 68% strike thrown rate. He he gets in the zone and he's walking like less than 4% of batters, and that's a really good tool to have. So I don't think he's obviously it's tough to move pitchers up in this organization right now given the amount of starting pitching depth, but I think he's found his groove in Tampa, and I think the next month it will be really good to see him try and start getting more swing and miss right now. He's about a league average swinging strike rate. The strikeout percentage is less than 20%. So he's my I think he's definitely probably the only top 20 prospect from my personal rankings in Tampa, and I'm curious to see how he keeps developing over the next month before he hopefully goes to Hudson Valley after the draft or trade deadline.
Now, after getting to see him on camera, and this sounds stupid to say, a pitcher's going to struggle if they're not locked in mechanically, but he seems like with his delivery, he gets so much into his legs that he's going to have to click things in to be sharp. And I just wondered to myself if that wasn't responsible for maybe not having the sterling first few starts that he's got, and now that he's on a regular turn, except now with the rain, who knows if that didn't help. So I don't know what John's opinion about that is, but
Yeah, and that's why I want to go see a lot of these pictures in person because then I can get the video of behind the plate, open side. I can look at the mechanics and kind of analyze them that way. You can only tell so much on a behind the mound kind of a view that you would get on these feeds.
yeah.
But I do want to add that I think from looking when I saw Rivas's first start in Tampa, he really impressed me, and I kind of want to say like I agree with what Aaron said about Zeal. But I want to say, given the status that he had with Ole Miss, I think he has more of a cachet with Tampa than Zeal does. And they took him at a lower part of the draft because of the Tommy John that he had.
Hmm.
They didn't know what they were going to get out of that. And I think it's high risk, high reward is what he's going to end up being.
He looks like he's got more power in there too, that eventually we might.
Yeah. And the thing that really impressed me was his off speed, his slider. I think it's like mid 80s, low 80s, if I remember correctly, like
Hmm.
83, 84. But it has that wiffle ball, Will Warren kind of a sweeper sort of a movement. That's when you're standing behind the plate, like you are at the tank, as they call it. Like you're almost literally right behind the plate, just because of how small that place is. I mean, if you've been to spring training, you know what that's like because it's the same field too that they do at spring training.
Yeah, you're
Um,
virtually umpiring the game.
yeah, I mean, you're breathing down their neck, so it's cool to see what the batters are seeing, and that's kind of the place that I like to put my cameras, right as close to the batter's eye level as I can, so that we can see what they're seeing, and we can see what that pitch movement is. And the video that I have, I think I posted it to the Yankees Savant YouTube. Um, those pitches are a lot of fun to watch. Not
Yeah.
if you're a batter, but if you're a fan.
He looks the part. He
Yeah.
definitely looks the part.
And I think, you kind of hit on something where he was a value pick being, having missed all of the 24 season with that elbow injury. And if you look at the Yankees draft history since, 2021 is really where I like to, focus on since the new player development system was really in place. A lot of the pitchers they pick in the bottom 10 rounds on the day three picks, those are guys usually for the bullpen, and they doesn't they're valuable guys. Jack Neely became a good prospect to get Mark Leiter. They've produced good value there, but he's really the only one that stands out as being given a chance to start. And I think that speaks to what you said is he is, obviously high risk given the injury history, and he wasn't the best command when he was pitching in college, but there's some really good stuff there that, give him the chance to start now, see if you have something. But if he needs to move to the bullpen, I could see him being just like Jack Neely or some of the I guess Danny Watson is kind of evened out since his hot start, but he could be someone who kind of pushes through the system as a reliever. So it's definitely a fun arm to watch.
Is Landry the next guy here in the conversation? I mean, Carlos mentioned him being on a roll
Mhm.
lately. Is he's starting to sneak up here, I think, on being part of this group of starters that we're talking about.
I looked at compared his first, 5 starts or 4 starts to the last four. His Ks are almost up 2 points. The walks down a point. Average is down almost 160 point against. So he's found something.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the last five starts, it's a 1.88 ERA,
Hmm.
1.89 average against, yeah, 26 strikeouts to seven walks in 24 innings. That's some good stuff. He's throwing strikes for the most part. I wouldn't say it's about average swinging strike rate, but I don't think he's really a strikeout guy. But it's definitely providing real value for Tampa, and he's a guy who's helping as a late round pick. You know, he was, yeah, 16th rounder in 2023. He's showing that, he can be a valuable arm in the Yankee system and provide innings for them while when you deal with all the injuries that you deal with starting pitchers, it's a really good thing to have.
And Aaron, you were mentioning late round picks being mostly bullpen. Brandon Decker was supposed to start today, and he was 19th round out
Yes, you're
of the
right.
JUCO
Yes.
Oakland.
Wasn't Zach Messenger also a late round pick?
He
He was a
was, yeah,
14th rounder. He was a funny one though, because he started in the pen, if I
Hmm.
remember correctly, and
yeah.
then
And
they
then
moved him to
Rachel moved
starter,
him
and
to
now
the.
he's
Yep.
he's
It's like
back to pen.
Ryan
Hmm.
Anderson was the same way, but he's
Mhm.
kind of been back and forth though.
Yeah. No,
Um.
I mean it's tough. Those guys, it's good seeing a lot of them reach the upper levels, but that's the part of minor league baseball. It's most of these guys don't make the pros, and we're seeing, Messenger, who I thought was quite good in Double A. He's had his difficulties in Triple A. So but no, it's good seeing Landry and Decker provide real value to this Tampa team right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a pin on Messenger because I want to bring him up later on again. But I
Yeah.
just wanted to mention something real quick. It's weird, right? Because Gazia went up. If I recall correctly, he got rocked when he went up.
It was 9 hits, I remember, in like 4 innings. I don't think he gave up a ton of runs, but it was definitely a lot of contact.
Yeah, but they did, and it was basically they moved him up for a spot start, and they did the same thing I remember with Cam and with Cam Schlittler and also with Josh Gross. And when they came back, they were different pitchers.
You're saying they're doing
Yeah,
this for a
it's
reason.
I'm not saying if it's for a reason, but I find it curious that they send them up, they get their ass kicked wherever they go, and then they come back, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, this is what we were expecting out of you when you were drafted.
maybe it's like a with a bat, you put the donut on it, you start swinging it heavy, and then when you take that donut off, you're swinging a light bat. I mean, it sounds silly, but I think there's something to, you see what a more difficult level is,
Yeah.
and you get a better sense of, okay, these are where I need to throw my strikes. These are, the things that they're laying off of. And it kind of builds, okay, that's what they're doing here. But, that's not, so, if I'm able to kind of start doing those things a bit better here, then it'll be a lot better when I go back down to Tampa or go back down to Hudson Valley. So I think there definitely could be something to that because you are right. Ben Shields is another guy who had to make a
Hmm.
spot start in AAA last year, and
Hmm.
when he was in AA, he was quite good. So it's definitely an interesting thing to think about.
Hmm. Um, Moving on then to Hudson Valley. You had Parks Harbor who hit 391, 500 on base, 335 OPS, extra base hit, 3 RBIs. Um, I'll, I'll I'll bring it back up at the end of this. But Thomas Frick hit 308, 1077 OPS, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs. He had a monster game. I think all that damage was done in one game. Kobe Morales hit 269, 4 extra base hits, a home run, 3 RBIs. Looking at Kobe Morales' last 18 games, he's hitting over 300, 4 doubles, a triple, 2 home runs, 12 RBIs. He's a guy that I want to say he's overlooked, but he just keeps producing.
I think he's always been overlooked the whole time he's been in the system.
Hmm.
I think we talk about a system that's been weak on hitters. And it's good having a guy provide. I think that's something we've seen with this whole draft class for the most part. A lot of these later round picks, providing real offense for this team that we had a struggling farm last year because not only were the top guys dealing with injuries or their own struggles, but the depth in the system just wasn't performing well. And having a guy like Morales, be a real key cog, and I think he hits what, third, fourth for Hudson Valley. He's been a really nice piece there, for an 18th round pick, 19th round pick. I can't remember which, but he was late.
Yeah, I think it was 18th round pick. Um, and
You've
on
seen him take some good swings. Did he not hit one over the batter's eye in spring training in a game this year?
I don't remember that one.
I
Was that
thought,
Morales?
yeah.
I think so. That sounds right. Yeah.
So yeah, there's something there.
Well, that's
Um,
the thing. Like, he's always, to me, he's always been impressive, but it's in the Yankees, and it's not just the Yankees. A lot of organizations frustrate me on this, but there's a lot of prospects that are slept on. Um, it depends on how you scout them because something that I mentioned on social media when Otto Kemp was called up by the Phillies was I was there for his first professional hit in the complex league. I never thought he'd be a major leaguer. You never know who you're going to see make the major leagues. And, there's some guys that are slept on and they never make it. And then, because he wasn't getting the hype because he was in the same class as Carl Crawford's son.
mm,
Yeah.
They were
I thought it was funny
batting. It
because
was,
yeah, I saw him. It's like when you go and see him, what they do. I saw Otto Kemp play third base against Hudson Valley live, and he had a monster night
yeah,
defensively, offensively. I'm like, who is this guy? So I saw him get called up the other day. I'm like, oh, good. So it was not a fluke. But I also
yeah.
saw Grant Richardson hit missiles every time I ever saw him play live, and they sent him packing. So
I
that's
really liked Grant.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that just speaks to, and you're right, because it's not just a Yankee thing. And it's something, as someone who's, becomes someone who scouts prospects and writes about them, there is a bit of I can't think of the right word, but a stigma against, the later round draft picks. And they almost, have to make it without a shadow of a doubt that they're worth moving. And it's not, the Yankees aren't afraid to do that. I mean, Rafael Flores was an undrafted free agent, and he's, he's in Double A and doing well. Dylan Hasso, who was also an undrafted free agent, he didn't blow anyone out of the water in his performance in Tampa and Hudson Valley last year. I think his OPS was around 110. WRC plus was 110 for the season last year, but he starts the year in Double A, which caught, my attention, and he's been great. So I think it's definitely possible to, really impress the Yankees and give them a chance, but it is definitely a lot harder, when you're a 18th rounder and, they want to give reps to, to different guys who they think have higher ceilings.
Mhm. In that note, I'm looking at Parks Harbor. I'm wondering why he's not at Somerset yet.
Yeah,
I'm looking at his numbers from
he's
Tampa to Hudson Valley. His numbers are even better at Hudson Valley.
well, and that's the thing. Like, if you looked at him last year, like you wouldn't, and it's kind of almost polar opposite from what Roderick Arias is putting out this year, right? Like at the end of the season, at the same time of year, Roderick Arias was killing the ball. I think Parks Harbor was hitting right around 200.
Yeah, I mean Roderick turned it on. I want to say around July 1st, but yeah,
And then you look at Roderick now, and he's hitting like 150 ish,
yeah.
160 ish, something like that.
I spoke to him a little bit before the game on Sunday, and he told me he's like, I'm working on some stuff. I know that there's, I know I'm not producing. I'm just paraphrasing,
Mm-hmm.
but he's like, I'm working day in and day out. I'm trying to put in work. I'm trying to figure this out. And I'm still hopeful that he is able to figure out the kid has a world of talent, man.
Mm-hmm. And I don't doubt that he's putting the work in. I know he has a good work ethic, but and you saw him in person. He just looked absolutely lost at the plate.
Hmm. I mean,
But
I'm sure
you
as
could,
a 20-year-old kid, you don't know what the hell is going on, and you just
yeah.
can't seem to catch a fucking break. So I can understand the frustration on his part. You know.
And especially when you see someone like a Parks Harbor, he comes in, he drops in middle of July, and then all of a sudden he's up in Hudson Valley. Hey, I should have been there.
Mhm.
You look at Lombard the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that from a lot of players um that they all assumed Roderick was going to be starting the season in Hudson Valley, and some of them even told me, we were told that he would be starting the season in Hudson Valley, so they don't know what the hell happened there. So I don't know what to say. I think everyone expected him to be at Hudson Valley.
Yeah, I mean, I did, for sure. I think that just goes to, and not to say that the Yankees thought he was going to be doing this. I think we all had, even the organization had some reason to believe he was going to be playing well after the way he finished last year. But, they have more information that we just aren't privy to. And, in times, it's proven decent, pretty right. And, like I said, I don't want to say they're right for not calling him up because you see the way he struggled, but there was clearly some stuff that they felt that he needed a little bit more work on.
But it's
And
funny
unfortunately, it just hasn't gone that way.
it's funny the way they pick and choose that, right? Because there's guys that are promoting, you're like, how or why,
Yeah, like,
right?
yeah, I mean, I mentioned Hasso. Why I was like, why is he getting the call to Double A?
Yeah, I was very surprised by that. But I mean,
Yeah,
He was
and
very impressive
but
to me, I
but
think.
yeah,
yeah,
that's a situation where
but
he's
statistically, nothing
done well.
popped out and said, okay, yeah, he
Yeah,
definitely deserves to be promoted.
You can't read a
yeah,
stat line.
No, I
that's
get
what
that,
I'm
I
just
get that,
saying is they have more information. Yeah, with
and I
Parks
think,
Harbor, I'm looking at his Statcast data. Thankfully, Tampa has that. He's his in Tampa. He had 107.9 90th percentile exit velocity, which is 99th percentile. Barrel percent is 17%, 99%. All his Statcast bat data is 99th percentile. And he had good. He was good zone contact, wasn't chasing too much. Like you can understand why they gave him a call up. But I do get your point that there are times where you're saying, well, why are they repeating this level? Why are they not getting that move? And it is unfortunate that for Roderick, I don't know if it affected him mentally or not. I wouldn't be surprised being a young guy. It would bother
mhm.
me, but it does, it really sucks to see that it's kind of just gone into a tailspin at the moment, and I really do hope he can get out of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people overlook the mental aspect of it because,
Hmm.
and I always talk about this, right? You have a guy like, for example, John Cruz was 2 years ago was killing it. Baseball America was like, oh, he's a top 15 prospect,
Hmm.
and now you look at his numbers and you're just like, what the hell happened? And I know I spoke to him a little bit after the trade, and that was one of the things that he had mentioned to me was like, I didn't do anything wrong, or that's what I got from it, and they have to understand that. Again, you're 16, 17 years old. It's a business. I know you think you're playing a game, but it's still a business.
Who's the shortstop at Hudson Valley? Sorry, Mark.
No,
Comenades.
yeah.
Okay.
The Roderick thing, it doesn't look good either. I mean, it's not just he's not running into bad luck. The swings don't look good.
Well, I mean,
yes.
his batted balls in play, it's way lower than what it usually is.
Yeah.
I've had this conversation with Aaron. I mean, the ground ball is averaging out now, but his ground ball rate was up as well. So it seemed like for me he wasn't hitting him where they ain't, as Yogi would say, and he was hitting they're probably like G4s and G3s.
So
It's, you know, just, well, I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
my logic was they need to do what they did with Jason. Jason, when he was in Tampa, was not hitting well. He was hitting 200, low 200s.
Yeah,
They
I
moved
remember
him
he
up
was off the fast
anyways.
start.
I think he needs a change of scenery. I think they need to promote him anyways, regardless of what his stats are. Get him a change of scenery, get him where I think he belongs, and I think he'll start producing.
I was
there are good
I was
things.
gonna bring that up because I don't remember if you tweeted about that, but you did make that point that it's weird how sometimes some of the big names move out of Tampa and all of a sudden they start producing, because the same thing happened with Lombard. Lombard, statistically, the numbers were not there for him in Tampa, and then he goes to Hudson Valley and he became a god there for whatever it was, a month and a half.
And
I
Parks
mean, I
Harbor's the
could say the
anomaly there.
same. I
Yeah.
think, you know, going back another couple of years, but I remember Augustin Ramirez and Jesus Rodriguez, you know, they both were decent in Tampa, didn't look like anything special. Ramirez goes to Hudson Valley and goes on that absolute heater, you know, and only spends like 3 weeks there before he's in Somerset. And Jesus Rodriguez had a not as severe but similar ascension. So yeah, it's, you know, change of scenery could work, and he does have, you know, he's really good at swinging in the zone. He doesn't chase too much. He barrels up the ball pretty well. It's his exit velocities aren't great. You know, that could be something, you know, I think you would want to be better. And obviously, I think the main issue is he's just whiffing way too much. But I think, you know, with having at least an idea of the zone, you know, moving up a level and getting a change of scenery, it could be good for him. And I don't think, you know, it's one thing when Lombard was there playing shortstop, but I don't think Colmenares, you know, should be in the way of letting Roderick get some time there.
Question, John, you probably know, is he using a torpedo?
I have to look. I don't think so.
Because maybe that'll help.
You know,
You
now
know what?
that
You're gonna make me plug in my external hard drive.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are. Hang on.
Moving on to the pitching side of things.
Yeah, keep doing that.
Bailey D's last week, 7 shutout innings, 9 strikeouts, no walks, 1 hit. Elmer Rodriguez, ERC, went 7 innings, 7 shutout innings, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. Kyle Carr, 6 innings, 1 run, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. Griffin Herring, 6 innings, 1 run, 7 hits, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. Josh Groves, 5 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts. Bryce Cunningham pitched 4 2/3 shutout inning, a walk, 3 strikeouts. And I just wanted to mention quickly Bryce Warrecker because I love his fucking name. He went 2 1/3, 1 run, 2 strikeouts.
Yeah, Worker, his last few outings haven't been as pristine as you know his start of the season, but you know it's 25 innings and 5 walks. You know, that's some great control he's showing, and you know I'm glad the move to the bullpen has panned out for him because he could be, you know, a real weapon. That sweeper is absolutely nasty. I mean, he could be a real weapon from the bullpen one day.
I mean, I'm going back to ERC Elmer, second in the league in average against, fifth in ERA, fifth in strikeouts, sixth in innings pitched. I mean, it hurts me to see Carlos Narvaez playing so well, although I'm happy for him. But you know, the Yankees did get Elmer Cruz. They got IFA bonus pool money as well, so you got to give to get.
It went from we stole this guy from the Red Sox to this guy better be good.
Yeah, quickly, very quickly. Looking at Kyle Carr, he was very good in his last outing, which I want to say was yesterday. I think he went
Yeah.
6 2/3 innings, one run,
Yeah.
7 strikeouts. It tied for his career. It was his career. He tied his career high for length as far as 6 2/3 innings. But he's over 150 innings pitched at Hudson Valley. Isn't it time to move on to Somerset?
I say yes.
It's
You've got, I mean, look, they've got a place to put him. You had a six-man rotation in Hudson Valley. I think I'd have to take a look at the health piece of it to see that there are enough bodies for enough spots, but I think it's time for him to be in Somerset.
it's
I'd like to see him
it's
challenge a little bit more.
Yeah.
I definitely think with Cunningham going down, it gives you because I would have said, he would have been the guy I would want to give priority to getting to Somerset. But with him going down, I think Ben has some clear, not that he still doesn't have amazing potential. I still think he's top five, top six prospect in the organization. His strike throwing definitely needs some more time at that level. So I don't see why, he couldn't fit into that Somerset rotation. It's just, with Brock Selvage back there, maybe, you have LeGrand, Selvage, Sellers. Um,
Shields
it's yeah,
should be back soon.
Shields will be it's tight, but I think they're Veer Reeling is
Well, Beck should
there.
be up. Beck should be a Scranton.
Beck should probably be in Scranton. I don't, we'll see if he gets there next week. Hope, maybe I know that the Lee Brandt guy, they just released him and
Hmm.
Anthony DeSclafani
Hmm.
just opted out. So I think there is going to be a spot there. So I don't see why Brendan Beck couldn't be the guy to fill that.
Another guy that, uh, I mean, for most people flies under the radar, but I've been a big fan of him from pretty much day one, which is Josh Groves. Got his ERA down to 3.54, 1.09 WHIP, 53 innings pitched, 62 strikeouts, 193 average against. I mean, he's another guy that you could be looking to push up.
Yep, that's good stuff there. He's still putting things together. He's only 22, but he's got some weapons. There's a nice set of materials there for a starting pitcher. And I think that is a guy, once he clicks it in, he can move. So I'm really happy with him so far.
I think you got to like the progress he's made. He's, throwing more strikes than he was last year. He's missing a few more bats. That the K percentage has gone a little bit up, walk percentage has gone a little bit down. That's always a good thing to see. He's pretty good at getting the ball on the ground. I don't think he has any elite stuff. I definitely think he profiles more as a future back of the rotation arm, but the work he's done this year gives me a chance that he could, one day be whether it's with the Yankees or not, I think he could be a starter in this league and not just a bullpen arm. He has, shown some really nice growth this year. And it wouldn't, I guess, not to repeat the same conversation, but it's, the struggle to call guys up, but he's someone I, would like to see, in Somerset and, by August, of course, if he's still even here.
Just to interject real
Stop it.
quickly, the photo I have from April of Roderick Arias does not have him with a torpedo bat.
Mm. All right. Moving on to Somerset then. You have Rock Riggio. He hit 318, 1227 OPS, 5 extra base hits, 4 home runs, 7 RBIs, a stolen base. Tyler Hardman, who's had a resurgence of late, he hit 267, 2 extra base hits, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. Rafael Flores hit 261, an extra base hit, and RBI. On the pitching side of things, you had Brendan Beck pitch 5 innings, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. And Harrison Cohen went 2 2/3 shutout innings, a walk, 2 walks and a strikeout, and was promoted today, by the way.
Congratulations to
Earned.
Christian Cohen.
Yeah, he put in some serious work at Double A this year.
He's a good
I think
pitcher.
I think Hardman's got that dad power thing going on. I think
The
that's what
what?
that is.
The what?
Dad power. And it's
He
he and
I
his wife
watched
are
those guys
expecting.
play. I got to see them live last week, and he had an absolute tank. And it was one of those where the air just comes out of the stadium as soon as he made contact. Like, oh, that's gone. Yes.
That was
Did-
such it's crazy, there was that game where Spencer Jones was back and Josh Chisholm was making his rehab appearance, and there was so much hype around that game. Hardman probably had the best game with those 2 home runs. No, it's not the guy you'd expect to steal the show, but it's good for him. He's been through a lot, and he's a guy who started off well in his career, but has tapered off. But it's nice seeing him
Yeah, injuries have
show some
set him
real
back a bit.
injuries have set him back. It's the swing and miss has become an issue at the upper level, but it's cool seeing him get back to some of that real power he has. And I again, not to I find TJ Rumfield could be an interesting name at the trade deadline for teams. I know we're not AAA yet, but I could see, if there is a move there, Tyler Hardman could be a guy to, get a chance at AAA at first base.
Mhm. Looking at Hardman's last 16 games, he's hitting 317, 1021 OPS, 9 extra base hits, 7 home runs, 20 RBIs. So um, he's hot right now.
And I'll tell you, Spencer Jones, he's been dragged recently by national media, and I get it. If you're looking at the numbers, I get it. He's tinkering with his stance seemingly on a daily basis. But if you want to know why he's still a prospect, I was sitting right behind the Somerset on deck circle. And Carlos, you have a video of this. It was a two-strike breaking ball. He wasn't on time.
Mhm.
Front side, front arm, just hits an opposite field home run that as soon as he hit it, the ball wasn't even over the fence, and I go, that's why he's still a prospect. Because I don't know anybody else who can do that.
I think all three hits.
There's
Yes,
not a minor league player that I've seen who can be off time and then still front arm the ball over the left field fence. He's just got special talent.
Was that yesterday?
That was last Tuesday.
Oh, because yesterday he
I,
hit three.
He hit an opposite field home
Yeah.
run yesterday too.
All three hits last night were opposite field. The
Yeah.
home run, the double,
Yeah.
and the single.
He looks
That's-
good in center field. I mean, it's just you go and look at the stat line. I still just throw my hands up because I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm looking at, something that just doesn't match up with other human beings that play the game.
Well, and that power sounds a lot like, and I hate the comp. I get the comp, but it sounds a lot like that home run that Judge hit last night. And if you look at where that ball was placed, it's because of his size.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of the benefits of having Spencer Jones being that size is you have so much reach over the plate. You could have a ball almost in the other batter's box, and he can still hit it down the third base line almost.
And you got to give that guy time because
Yeah.
this is unique talent, and it may never happen, and I get it, and people are getting on his case because he's been in Double-A for X number of at bats, and that's all fine, but you got to see where this goes because this is special.
I think there's good things, it's first of all, I think he just definitely deserves a bit of a reprieve from that first week back because he didn't rehab anywhere. This was straight back to the lineup after what he missed three weeks, two, maybe even four. I can't remember, but he missed some time to. Of course, a guy like that with those long limbs and already having swing and miss concerns, of course, it's it's not doesn't surprise me that his K rate kind of ballooned up a little after, in that first week back. But, we've seen his chase rate get a little better this year, especially since applying the new stance. And, he's absolutely tapped into the game power. Um, it's so hard to pin down because he really does need to make some more contact. But, I don't see why he couldn't be, I think he's the most unique, we call it Ellie De La Cruz or O'Neill Cruz unicorns. I think he's the most unique with, just his power is so prestigious that I think he could be, 33% strikeout guy in the pros. But if he's able to, get to that power, that game power, he could easily still hit 30 home runs and be a productive guy playing defense and stealing bases. You're absolutely right. It's not worth giving up on at this point.
I think like the conversation we had earlier, it may be valuable to promote him to AAA just to see what he does there. Because if he fails, I mean, they wouldn't be able to send him down because that would just look so bad on the organization. So obviously, it would be a decision that they'd have to take pretty seriously to promote him. But I think it would do him a lot of good because he would see that better pitching. And like we said earlier, I think that change of scenery, seeing the different pitching, different level pitching, I think that would do him a world of good because he did pretty well, if I remember correctly, in spring training. He's always done well in spring training.
Yeah. I
Especially
think
last year.
maybe ABS too can be something that, is able to, challenge a couple of those calls that don't go his way. That just happens when you're a big guy like that. Yeah, no, it's I again don't disagree. I think that's, something we might see, in July or August, him get a shot at AAA. I would not, unless he really tank bottoms out this next month and a half. I would be shocked if we don't see him in AAA to end the year.
I think he gets promoted before the 4th of July.
I would love that.
And I wouldn't scout the stat line on Lombard either. I know he if you don't look at the
He's
scoreboard while you're
yeah.
watching him play, like you understand this. Don't pay attention to the batting average or any of that stuff. Like just watch him play. You'll be excited.
Ball's going in the air more. He's starting to drive it a bit more. I saw some plays where it's, kind of just hit right at a guy or, just hangs up a little bit too much. I think that's going to be something where it's clearly trending up. That issue last year was he was hitting all the balls on the ground, and that's something he's really worked on. And I'm not worried. He's so mature at the plate. It's so impressive some of the pitches he lays off of. That just gives him such a high floor. Um, that yeah, it's coming. He's every bit worth the top 20 prospect in all baseball that he is.
Well, it's also on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah,
And he made
absolutely.
he got I audibly said wow on a play he didn't make. I mean, he got to a ball and I thought he was going to try to make the throw, but even not making the play
I think he made
was
one of those today.
impressive.
He made one of those today at third base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's why I don't want to go backwards, but with Arias, I was going to ask defensively, just watching highlights, looks like he's playing okay.
He looks a lot better than he did last year.
Yeah.
That's 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say
So
that. I saw him make a play on Sunday, and I was like, wow.
with
Yeah.
that behind the back play on the double
Yeah.
play, holy moly, that was awesome.
Yeah. And I would say that would be the reason that I kind of like you're mentioning with Jones. That would be the reason that I'd hang on to him and still give him a little bit of hope because that defense, he had 20 something errors last year, something like that. And he's nowhere near on track to make those kind of errors this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean defense matters. It's something that, we have the least visibility to, and I think there's the most misunderstanding of, but defense absolutely matters as a prospect.
Well, that's why
Um,
going back to Parks Harbor, I wonder if they're trying to find out if he can play third base. That would be my guess.
yeah.
And I don't
I mean,
know that they
there's
know
not a
that
lot of
yet.
options, though.
What's that?
There's not a lot of options in the system.
No, but I'm saying if they don't think he can play third, but he can hit, then he plays first,
Yeah.
and then he's going to have to hit more.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
From
think
what
that
I
is, I
from
don't
what
think
I've
that's an issue
heard,
hitting more.
What's that?
Hitting more is not
from
an
what
issue
I've
for
heard,
him.
and from what I've kind of seen and heard, it seems like he's passable at third. How that projects to, as he goes to Double A and Triple A, I don't know. But for the time being, still playing, be able to play solid third base is good. It's definitely. I don't think it's clear that he can't do it yet.
On that note, wanted to talk a little bit about Rock Riggio, and the tear that he's on right now. I think he's hitting just under 300, OPS over 1100, seven doubles, a triple, 12 home runs, which leads the organization, which to me, that is crazy. 15% walk rate, 23% strikeout rate. I mean, someone asked me today, is he a legit prospect? And I said, the Yankees always thought he was a legit prospect,
Yeah.
just he wasn't producing at that level, but something seems to have clicked for him this season.
I remember Kylie McDaniel saying before the draft that there were a lot of scouts who were solid on him being a big leaguer at some point. So, what he's doing now that he wasn't doing last year
On
is
both
finding the
sides of the
barrel.
ball.
Yeah, finding the barrel though. I mean, this is a lot of damage in a short period of time.
I saw him say something today, and I was like, "Wow." He said, "I feel indestructible right now."
Indestructible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a fiery
Well,
personality.
I tell you
I
what it
love
He's
that.
a
is.
I
fun
love
guy.
that.
It's
I
because
love
he
that.
doesn't have to shave. That's what it is.
I love that.
Well, and that goes back to the comp of what was it, Dustin Pedroia or something like that.
Yeah. He's a
I,
pain in the butt.
Yeah,
That's
I,
the whole thing, and
I
Love
he's
that.
always been like that.
I've
Yep.
always hated Dustin Pedroia, but I respected
yep.
that guy.
Right. I'd love to have a guy that everybody hated.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah. I just think that, he was solid last year, but it just felt like something just wasn't clicking. I think one thing that really has helped is, he always had the pull side power. Even last year, he still hit, 12 home runs, I think, on the season. It wasn't bad. I think his pull percentage is down this year, and he's hitting it more to all fields. I think that's really helping with the hit tool and the average. But he's also been able to, he's still pulling fly balls for home runs. I know he had one opposite field home run, but he still has that pull side power, but he's, not trying to yank everything the other, to the pull side and taking things, I think that's what Spencer Jones does so well is he just takes the pitches in the direction they're coming in. I think that's something that, Rock has worked on, and it's paying off. He looks like a more of a complete hitter this year that, he definitely looks like a guy who could be a starting second baseman in the league.
If Rock finishes the season hitting somewhere 280, 290 with 20 plus home runs and the strikeout walk rate are still looking like that, I mean, he's a guy that could be looking at the big leagues by 2026, next season.
Yeah.
What would that mean for the Yankees?
He is a second baseman though.
Mhm.
So that if Lombard isn't playing short, he can play second or third. I think Riggio's a second baseman. So
Yeah, all the way.
the bat's going to have to carry him along the way.
What does that mean for the Yankees if Rock is legitimate?
I was just thinking that because I was just thinking, so what happens with someone like Jazz? Because I don't know
Right now,
exactly
he's their
what his
best option at
contract is.
third.
Well,
Yeah, but so like,
and
let's say they call up Lombard. Like let's say as a hypothetical, let's say they do a Volpe. They
Mhm.
have Lombard start. Lombard makes his way to AAA by the end of the year. Let's say he gets a couple innings, a couple games in AAA. They think he's legit. He has an insane spring training. They start Lombard at third for next season. Rock Riggio could be a potential call up at some point next year. Where does that put Jazz? You're not going to make him DH if you have Stanton or you
well,
have Ben Rice or
I think there's a couple routes I think of because first of all, just Jazz, like he's gonna be your starting second baseman. I really like Rock and what he's doing, but that's you can be patient with that. He won't be Rule 5 eligible this upcoming off season, so it's the winter of 27 that the decision has to be made. Um, I think that Rock, with this ascent that he's on. If I and they say that, hey, Volpe, still has, they might extend Volpe for all we know, but Volpe still has 3 more seasons at short. Lombard has 6 more seasons at third. We only need a second baseman. Maybe Rock can be a guy that we trade. That if this ascent is so real that he could be a real prospect that. I know we love Augustin. Maybe if they don't think Rock's the greatest defensive second baseman, they could say, hey, we're going to trade you, get something of real value for the immediate, and find a different solution at second. That's a possibility. Other than, I think that it could just be, you always need depth, and at some point he might just be needed in the 26th season, and he'll, if he plays well, he'll put his foot in the door and say, hey, this job's going to be mine come 2027. So, I don't think it's something that you have to rush to say, oh yeah, you got to move Jazz or Lombard for him, but it's just good to see that you were having this conversation that, hey, what happens when he is ready? Because it very well could happen.
For me, I know a Yankee prospect has made mainstream when Yankee fans already start including them in mock trades, which has happened with Lagrange, Rock Riggio. So that's how I know that a prospect has made mainstream when I start seeing them on Yankee Twitter. It's like, hey, this guy for Paul Skeens.
I was going to say Paul Skeens. There was one I saw today that had like 6 different prospects, and I'm like, bro, you're nuts.
When I see
No, I saw
anyone from
I saw someone talking about how to call up Rock Riggio to take Pablo Reyes' spot.
that's Lombard, dude. That's Lombard. No,
Well,
Lombard's been ousted. He's not popular anymore. It's all about Rock.
let's hope that Rock Riggio's next 120 at bats are as good as his first 120 at bats, and then we'll keep talking about him.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to Scranton. You had Brendan Davis, who I didn't know what to make of him. He hit 474, 1419 OPS, 4 extra base hits, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs. Jesus Rodriguez hit 304 with an 858 OPS, 2 extra base hits, 3 RBIs, 6 walks. Yorbe Vivas hit 267, 888 OPS, a home run, 3 RBIs, 3 walks. TJ Brumfield hit 261, 741 OPS, 2 extra base hits, 2 RBIs, and 5 walks. On the pitching side of things, you had Cam Schlittler, who made his debut last week. He pitched 5 innings, 1 run, 3 walks, 8 strikeouts. And Zach Messenger, who has been moved to the bullpen, pitched 3 1/3 shutout innings. And since his move to the bullpen, he's pitching to a 0.79 ERA.
Oh,
Tell me not to get excited about Brendan Davis, but it's too
Oh,
late because I'm already
I'm
excited
already
about Brendan
there.
Davis.
Aaron already
I'm
wrote an
already
article about
there.
him.
he
I didn't I'm not right. I'm still finishing up my top 30 prospects. But it will be I'm just looking to see if he's 1 for 3 tonight with the walk and a strikeout. No extra base hits. So no, it's definitely something I want to write about after I finish this top 30 prospects. But it's such a great story. This guy is, a top 25 prospect in all of baseball, and then just the injuries, and he's Spencer Jones like, he has some contact issues, but hits the crap out of the ball. But the injuries really did not help, and just to see him have this renaissance, I really don't know if it's for real. It's a small sample, but I'm looking at his AAA stats right now, and his zone contact percentage is 69.2%, which is very low. Um, but his chase rate is a little below average, not too bad. Again, this is, I think, a 7 game sample size, so don't look too much into that. But some of those issues are still there, but he's just hitting the crap out of the ball. And if
Yeah.
he's gonna have that game power, then that could be something that intrigues someone. And it's just
And he's
whether he,
25 and he
Yes.
yeah.
missed a
yeah,
lot of time. So
yeah.
very much a prospect.
Yeah, I don't know if he's someone ultimately can't even, get, if we can get like a reliever out of him. Imagine just, getting an impact reliever at the trade deadline for a championship run for a guy you just took a lottery ticket on, just picked him up for
Reclamation
free.
project.
You know what I thought about?
Yeah.
I thought about Carlos's namesake today when I was thinking about Brennan Davis. When the Yankees had Carlos Pena in
Oh my
AAA,
God.
and then he went to Tampa and became an established major league.
Wait, who had him? Who had him?
The Yankees did.
They did?
Yeah. He
I
was
don't remember
playing at
that.
AAA for them, and there
Thought
was
Billy
no
Bean
spot
traded
for him.
him.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, he left, went to Tampa, took off as a major leaguer. And I
I
was
remember him
thinking,
in
is this
Tampa,
the type of
Oakland,
thing where
Texas.
Brennan Davis rehabilitates with the Yankees? There's no spot for him, and then he ends up someplace else and becomes a big league regular.
Mm.
But I don't
When
know,
I
that's just hypotheticals. But I'm excited
Yeah.
about this kid. I'm glad they have him.
when I
Yeah.
saw him rehabbing down here in the complex league, I could tell because you could tell, see rehabbers all the time. I think we have Cam Eden down here and with the Tarpons in Tampa, and he's been just kind of but you compare it to like Brennan Davis, and I'm like, yeah, all right, he's legit. Like I've seen Stanton, I've seen Clint Frazier, I've seen so many different guys come in, and he's really the one that's impressed me even more
Yeah.
than like say a Stanton.
You heard
So
it
I
here
don't know if
first. Brennan Davis is better than John Carlos Stanton.
I'm saying that. I'm just saying that the takes that these guys get in the complex league are going to be obviously different than even Tampa,
Yeah.
right? Just because there's different talent, there's more international players that you're going to find in the complex league, and then you kind of start to see those again when you start getting into the higher levels. When you start getting that mix, like a Carlos Legrand versus Ben Hess the next day. Like you get that kind of a mix. You start seeing that a little bit more, I think, in AAA again. And I think that's part of why he's doing well. Just the mix of pitching, I guess.
Mm. So try this one on for size. I don't know if you saw this. What BA just updated their Yankees top 30 prospects, right? There are 3 prospects in their top 30 who they gave at least a 50 hit tool. One of them is not Jesus Rodriguez. What do you think about that?
Uh, yeah.
It depends on who did the scouting for the Yankees for them.
Josh Norris usually writes those up,
Okay.
Or Pontus
but
sometimes, I think.
what's that?
I think probably part of it, and I don't fully disagree. I would definitely at least give him a 50. I could think about even going up to 55. Of course, I know this Josh Norris is, I like his stuff for the most part.
Mhm.
But he talks about his, he's even though he makes a lot of contact, he swings at too many pitches that he shouldn't and makes weak contact. And I think that is definitely part of the hit tool aspect of it.
That
Yep.
was in
I
the
think,
write-up that I think
Yep.
yeah,
that
exactly. Yeah,
factors into
exactly.
what
I'm
he's.
looking at it. Yeah, I stole that from him. So
His weak
I do
contact.
get that. Yeah, he's saying he makes too much weak contact because he's swinging at pitchers' pitches. And there is definitely something to that of lowering his hit tool. Why it's not 60 grade, but I do agree that even despite that, he makes so much contact and he has such good for the most part has good swing decisions. It is a little surprising that it is not there.
Yeah,
Let me
because
pull up the stats real
does he
quickly.
have he's got a higher on base than he does slug right now, I think.
Yeah,
And
but
does
and
he
he
have a
does.
home run yet?
I think he has one.
I'm
Does
pretty
he?
sure he does.
I will say I was wrong. He has a 30, almost a 33% chase rate, which is very high. So that definitely gives credence to what Norris was saying. But that 90% in zone contact rate is quite crazy.
Pretty high.
Yeah,
He
but
does have one home
it's
run,
yeah.
but I'm sure that that's a knock. That
I didn't know Cam Schiller went today.
Yeah, Cam, yeah, he was good. I
Peter was
didn't
good.
Yeah, wasn't great with his strike throwing again, but he was getting the swings and misses, and I think that's the good sign for this level. He's done a good job through two starts. It's progressing like you would want him to.
Hmm.
so one of the guys they did put a 50 on the hit tool is in Scranton,
Don't tell me it was Everson.
Bebas. They put a 30 on Everson.
Yeah, that's fair. I definitely don't honestly, that might be another one where I think you're undervaluing him and that hit tool because unlike Rodriguez, Yorbit has even higher better plate discipline. He's even better with his zone swing and his chase rate. He's also, got amazing contact. He has both of the plate discipline and the swing decisions and contact, whereas Rodriguez really only fully has the contact. And that it's such a great hit tool. And even when I know that cup of coffee he had wasn't great. And the swing decisions were still really strong in those. I think it was 53 at bats he had, something like that. It was the contact that was struggling, but it's that he has a great eye. He knows the strike zone so well that he'll be a bench bat somewhere for at least a couple of years. Hopefully he can find more power in there to make him a full-time major leaguer. But he has a easily can be a bench player somewhere if it's not for the Yankees. Mhm.
I don't remember what it is, but I know that the last time I checked, it was under 10%, well under 10%.
It's like a 7% walk
Hmm.
rate or 7% strikeout rate and a
Yep.
12.5% K rate.
Somewhere around there when I last saw
Walk rate. Yeah, he's almost walking twice as much as he's striking out,
it. Hmm.
which is insane.
All right. You guys have anything else?
Mhm. Um, one sec. I think that I just want to mention, Clayton Beater. I know he didn't get the call today, like some thought he would. I know the strike throwing's been an issue, but tonight, 1 inning, 2K, 16 pitches, 13 strikes. That's a few more outings like that, and that's what you need to see from him. So
Yeah, I definitely think he's one of the guys that should be called up soon. I don't think they got much to lose at this point, especially if you're looking for another arm, a guy
yeah.
who misses bats.
It's definitely, as we'll see how the situation with the bullpen goes and how they try and, find fresh guys to relieve some of the higher end guys. But I could see him getting a chance. I think I just mentioned last week, he's really didn't start there just because, that injury
Hmm.
that he had in spring training. Otherwise, he was very likely going to be on the opening day roster. Anyways,
Agreed.
it's just, it's just that it's been poor timing for him. But I think that if he can continue to have more outings like tonight, when they need someone, he'll get a chance. Mm-mm.
The other guy that I want to see also improve the command a little bit. I don't know if it has to do with the league. Is Raiselman. I love that guy, man.
Mhm.
Man, I didn't even look at his numbers until a couple of days ago. The walk total, holy
Mhm.
moly. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's been a little surprising because he didn't. It wasn't that bad at Double A.
Yeah, no. I mean,
It's I don't know what's happening, but 54% strikes thrown, only 6% swinging strike. It definitely has been his downfall. He's only given up two extra base hits as far as wait, did he give has he given up a home run? I can't see.
He gave one up
Um,
yesterday.
okay, he has
Did it
given up
yesterday.
home runs. He has given up some home runs, my bad. Um, but he does a good job avoiding giving up hits. It's just the walks, and
I think
I
that's
think
that's
that's what.
for me. That's it right there. Just the walks.
Yeah,
Everything
absolutely.
else.
You can deal with a whole solo shot, but it's when you walk someone and then give up the home run. That happened to someone. I forget who it was, but I mean, it happened to Carlos Rodon on Sunday night. I was at that game, and it's just the walks are frustrating, and that's been the major. If there's one, maybe, I guess maybe outside of the third base situation, but if outside of that, the biggest issue with the Yankees, I would say, has just been their pitchers throwing too many walks, and that's exactly what they do not need right now. So yeah, Raiselman definitely needs to work on that because I'm still high on him. I still think he can be a
Absolutely.
really good reliever.
Yeah, I
And
love the
he's
guy, man.
he's
And
barely pitched. He's
mhm.
not even 24, and he's just barely pitched because of those injuries. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's no rush. The fact that he's in AAA already is impressive.
And I think someone that's not talked about enough is Alan Winans. His agent brought him to my attention in spring training. I saw his stuff, and I'm like, yeah, right. This is a guy I'm gonna need to watch this year. 0.62 ERA, I think. After last night, he gave up 2 runs in his outing.
Mhm.
Um,
Point six two point six
but
two
that's the
ERA
thing, like,
after giving up 2 runs.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
it
he came
skyrocketed.
into it with like a 0.26 or something like that, which is insane. And it's crazy to think that the Yankees haven't called him up. But at the same time, there's no spot for him unless you're going to
I mean, they
cinch.
had a spot and they gave it to Ryan Yarborough.
Well, I
but
To be
mean,
but
yeah,
that
fair,
worked out pretty
Yarborough's
well.
but
been very
It
good.
did. It did.
yeah, but I mean,
He's clearly the sixth starter right now in case, well, I guess we'll see what happens with Brew Baker, but he's clearly they're keep preserving that length right now.
and then you have to think about what they do with Stroman because he doesn't really have a certain spot within the rotation of the bullpen, and that's a whole nother can of worms in that. But um, I think it's a good thing that where the Yankees are in a good place right now as far as that goes, and it's not very often that we're fortunate enough to say that, right? And you may not look at it that way, but in some aspects, it's almost a blessing in disguise that Garrett Cole is injured because we may get the chance to see something like that, where and a guy that has an under 1 ERA makes his spend some time with the Yankees, if for whatever reason, whether it's bullpen or whether it's a starting role. Um, but at the same time, they may be able to deal him for a bullpen guy or something else, right? Because they have a good amount of talent, I think, coming out of AAA that they can use with the trade deadline, like you were saying, Brendan Davis.
They have an abnormal, I think, 40-man roster for them because there's a high percentage of guys who could be DFA'd.
Yeah,
They don't usually have this many spots where you could say, well, that guy's spot's in jeopardy. But there's 5 or 6 maybe where you could say that. And they only have 39 guys on the 40-man right now. So there's going to be some churn on the back of that roster. And I think several spots are going to be pitchers that add to the depth. And they always unearth somebody along the line. So there's probably somebody who's not in the organization who you haven't heard of who's going to end up being in that bullpen at some point.
like Efros. I mean, there was a lot of conversation around Efros getting sent back up to the Yankees today, given his history. I'm thinking this is a put up or shut up kind of an opportunity. Um,
He is not pitched well at all.
I
that's
think
the thing.
They just needed a fresh arm. I think that's really what it is. They
But
needed.
why wouldn't you give that opportunity to Beater or Winans or something like that? Why would you give someone an opportunity with a 15 ERA?
I'm with you. I kind of had the feeling like, well, we got to see something here. We traded for this guy, and he hasn't pitched, so he's got to be here at some point. We got to see what we have, and then
Yeah.
a decision. So,
Well, and the way that I look at it is, hey, look, at least the Yankees made out better than the Mets did with dealing away Pete Crow Armstrong.
mm.
Well, that's Wisniewski's good, but Pete Crow Armstrong was former first round pick and top, he was a top 100 prospect at the time of it. So, but yeah, it
The Mets
really
didn't get their
does.
value is kind of what my point was.
Yeah,
They got
Oh
Javi
yeah, fair
Baez out of
enough.
that, and
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Trevor Williams, he was a good reliever for them. No, I know. Um,
I'd be
yeah,
cursing
I
that
do.
deal more. Unfortunately, Wisniewski's hurt, but
yeah.
it's
Yeah, I
morbid
think
to say
TJ.
that. But yeah, I'd be cursing that deal more if that weren't the case.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that was a weird one because, especially because they just dealt Waldichuk also, and him and Waldichuk were the top two pitching prospects at the time. So to deal both of them, but just, yeah, dealing him for a reliever with 5 years of control, just,
Who was
uh,
good. It's just
yeah,
unfortunately never hasn't stayed
yeah,
healthy.
didn't the injury happen during that 22 season? Or
I
he missed
want to say
time?
yeah that
Yeah,
he
he
got
got hurt.
hurt
He
then.
didn't even make the playoffs because he got hurt.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're gonna leave it on that note. I want to thank you all for coming on, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you, guys.
Good
Yep,
to see
thank you.
you.
Have a good one.
Thanks.